What if the reason why people don't respect you isn't because you're weak, unlucky, or unskilled? What if the reason why people don't respect you is simply because your emotions rule your actions rather than your values? Each day, countless individuals make a pledge to themselves and fail to keep it. They set goals for themselves only to succumb to distractions. They strive for success, but fail to go through with it when it stops being fun. For this reason, they remain predictable, manageable, and ordinary. However, Niccolo Machiavelli had an unsettling realization about humanity. The individual who dominates himself possesses greater power than one who tries to dominate others. In this video, you'll learn how discipline can make you more intimidating to those around you, command respect without saying anything, and leave people asking, "What's different about him?" At the end, you'll realize why learning discipline isn't just about productivity, although it definitely is. Niccolo Machiavelli was no stranger to the study of human nature. Most individuals are slaves, not necessarily to a monarch or government, but to themselves. Human beings are controlled by comfort, tempted by pleasure, and subdued by transient feelings. People crave achievement, but not the cost associated with it. They seek admiration, but they run away from any obligations. They fantasize about glory, but are unwilling to accept what comes with it. They remain where they always were. A self-disciplined individual is distinct. He rises even when his body tells him to rest. He takes action in spite of all the reasons not to. He perseveres while others have already given up. And he keeps going when all motivation runs dry. That is why self-discipline is intimidating. Self-discipline makes an individual hard to manage. A disciplined brain turns into an impregnable fort. Disciplined living becomes a powerful tool. Disciplined reputation serves as an invisible strength. Today, we will discuss Machiavellian views on the process of disciplining yourself to a degree where everyone else feels out of place. Discipline makes you powerful. According to Machiavelli, one should not seek to be powerful via talent or luck, but rather through self-control, which other individuals lack. For the vast majority, the source of power lies in wealth, high social standing, personal influence, or natural talent. In contrast to many others, Machiavelli had another perspective on life. The reason why the most powerful individual in a group of people is not always the most dominant, wealthy, or intelligent person is that power can be attained via self-discipline. If you observe your surroundings thoroughly, you will see that people act based on their feelings rather than reason most of the time. People operate efficiently only when they feel motivated to do something. In other words, people are productive only for several days, after which they go back to distractions. Discipline is promised, yet comfort wins once resistance occurs. According to Machiavelli, that's what makes so many men powerless. It's not because of some enemy outside of themselves, but simply because of their own weaknesses. The man whose desires, reactions, habits, and attention cannot be controlled is open to manipulation through pleasure, tempted to distraction, discouraged through criticism, and defeated by the slightest inconvenience. Even if this person had grand ambitions, he doesn't have the base for exercising power. That's where discipline comes into the equation. Once you develop self-discipline, you start living life from a set of principles as opposed to emotions. You move beyond, "I don't feel like it," questions to, "Is it essential for me to achieve my goal?" This alone puts you above ordinary men. Compare the concept of motivation to that of discipline. Motivation comes and goes. It is dependent on situations and circumstances. On the other hand, discipline means systematic regulation of behavior. It enables one to behave uniformly, regardless of whether or not one is tired, bored, frustrated, or lacking inspiration. What Machiavelli liked about this kind of uniformity was that power required consistency. If a ruler does things only when he is inspired, he will not remain a king for long. Similarly, a strategizer will fail in battles if he lacks discipline in such circumstances. Discipline also enables one to think clearly. With your behavior regulated by discipline, the mind remains calm. There will be little use of energy in thinking about making decisions, procrastinating, or repenting. You will have an upper hand over others whose minds lack focus and behavior is unpredictable. He knew that self-restraint is dominance in itself. Not dominance over others at first, but dominance over yourself. Once you manage to achieve this, the next step is much easier for you. Just think of those individuals who have an air of authority about them without even having to say a single word. It's never because of the volume of words they speak, but because of the confidence with which they perform. It's because they say what they mean, and mean what they say. It's because of the composure that comes out of their being. That's why the discipline can be quite intimidating, because it shows just how easily emotions can be used. Once someone notices you waking up early in the morning, working all day, exercising regularly, managing your emotions, and paying attention while everyone around you gets distracted from time to time, there is an inevitable comparison they will have to make with themselves. Discipline is certainly no mere virtue in the eyes of Machiavelli. It is an asset. It adds to one's dependability, improves one's judgment, enhances reputation, and provides resilience. Above all, it decreases one's dependence on the surroundings. The disciplined person will keep making progress despite unfavorable surroundings, whereas other people will fall apart without any external support. The true essence of power is thus neither the ability to control other people through force, nor anything else. The real power lies in being able to control oneself. Consistency beats competition. One of the key things that Machiavelli knew, but which other people never consider throughout their lives, is that it is not always the most talented one who wins. Most of the time, the winner is simply the person who doesn't give up. Everybody adores talent because it makes an interesting story. The idea of being exceptionally talented creates respect and admiration. But discipline reveals a rather uncomfortable truth. While talent can attract, consistency gives power. Try looking around and taking a closer look at the people surrounding you. The majority starts with a great deal of enthusiasm. They start a new project excitedly. They set big objectives and make big announcements. For several days, and perhaps even weeks, they are motivated, but the harsh reality sets in. The task becomes boring. It takes much more time than they initially anticipated. The motivation is gone, and soon they are desperately seeking some kind of excuse. This would not surprise Machiavelli. He pointed out that human nature always strives for pleasure and avoids pain. Without any external controls, they tend towards the easy way as opposed to the hard way. This is precisely why there is little consistency in anything. Anyone can do well when things are going smoothly. Anyone can be diligent when the motivation is high. Anyone can be consistent when he can see results. It is in the times of stagnation where the real test lies. It is in the times when action is required, but with no instant results. It is in the times when everything within them cries for a halt. Most individuals will fail this test, not because they cannot do so, not because they are not intelligent enough, because they have never been taught to operate regardless of emotions. They move according to how they feel. They work when inspired. They stop when tired. If they doubt themselves, they procrastinate. If they are demoralized, they give up. Thus, their entire lives become a manifestation of transient feelings rather than goals set for the future. This would represent a fatal flaw in Machiavelli's opinion. One who is led by his emotions will never be able to count on being reliable during times of stress. One who is led by his emotions becomes a slave to predictability, and predictability can always be exploited. The disciplined man is the exact opposite. He knows that emotions are just transitory guests and not the rulers. He wakes up and does what is needed, whether he is inspired or tired. He persists when he cannot see any results. He persists when there is no one praising him. He persists even if no one takes notice of him. Consistency is powerful. Whereas others are starting all over again and again, he is moving forward. Whereas others keep being sidetracked by every possible chance that comes along, he keeps improving his standing. Whereas others take months getting over their mistakes, he keeps gathering momentum. It looks like a marginal edge at the beginning. One disciplined day is rather unimpressive. One focused week is not particularly extraordinary. One disciplined month might be rather mediocre. However, Machiavelli knew the importance of accumulation. Small deeds done regularly become incomparable. One small stone can be rather insignificant. However, water pouring onto it every day transforms it. It is the same with consistency. Each act of discipline develops one's character. Each successful deed gives one confidence. Each promise made to oneself creates respect. With time, all those small achievements make one develop into something much more important than motivation. It makes them reliable. And reliability is power. It is what makes those disciplined individuals invincible. Not because they don't encounter difficulties, not because they always believe in themselves, and definitely not because they have some secret advantage. It is because they move forward when everyone else stops. Machiavelli was aware of that. The majority of one's competitors defeat themselves automatically because of inconsistency, giving up on their aims, distracting themselves from what they are supposed to do, losing patience along the way, becoming obsessed with comfort. Instead of trying to achieve the desired goal, they seek ways of doing it faster, all while the disciplined person continues to accumulate strength. The thing about being consistent, though, is that it is always visible. Your presence on a daily basis is noticed. Your level of expectations is always maintained. The alignment between what you say and do on a monthly basis is noted. For starters, they will ignore it. Then they will doubt it. Ultimately, they will start to admire it, perhaps even fear it. Why? Because consistency means one thing. It means that you are difficult to distract. It means that you are difficult to manipulate. It means that your development does not rely on anything external. While others wait for the right timing, you are already on your way. While others bargain with their excuses, you are putting your plan into motion. While others hope for the best, you create success by repeated discipline. Silence and self-control are scaring people. Machiavelli knew one thing that most people will never realize. The true power lies in people who say very little and have perfect self-control. People's behavior always follows certain patterns. Everyone tells everything about himself. People tell about their fears, their anger, their wishes and dreams, their flaws. Whenever people get insulted, threatened, and provoked, they respond without even thinking twice. Whenever someone insults people or disapproves of them, they immediately come up with an explanation. In doing so, however, they lose control. Everything that people show as their reaction, everything that people express through their behavior, becomes clear evidence of what people think and how people can be manipulated. That is exactly what Machiavelli noticed about people. Whereas the man who loses control of his emotions, he becomes easily predictable. The others know what makes him angry. The others know what distracts him. They know what wounds his pride. But once a man becomes predictable, he becomes manipulable. That is why self-control becomes very essential. Self-control does not mean suppressing your emotions to become an emotionally dead person. Self-control means refusing to be a slave to them. A disciplined person gets angry. A disciplined person feels disappointed. A disciplined person gets scared and frustrated. A disciplined person does not let those emotions control his actions. Most people simply react. The disciplined person always responds. There is a huge difference between reaction and response. Reaction happens immediately. Reaction is emotional. Response is thoughtful. Response is deliberate. Reaction makes us feel sorry later. Response gives us the upper hand. Insults trigger an almost irresistible impulse to strike back. People's pride and egos must be appeased. Machiavelli would recognize this as a setup. Once another person can manipulate your emotions, he controls your actions. When a mere insult changes your disposition, distracts your attention, or inspires action, you have lost self-control. Another person now controls you. A man of discipline knows this truth. While others anticipate conflict, he maintains his composure. While others try to distract him, he concentrates on what he wants. While others wait for a response, he stays silent. That silence will make others uncomfortable. People have always anticipated emotional reactions. They expect arguments. They expect justification. They expect to see some sort of expression of frustration. In their absence, doubt arises. For uncertainty affects people in an interesting manner. It makes them question. It compels them to ask questions. Why did he not react? Why does he not appear affected? What is going through his mind? Why won't he respond? Machiavelli knew that mystery will sometimes create greater influence than revelation. The less people know of what is going on inside you, the harder it becomes for them to manipulate you. This is not about being mysterious for the sake of seeming dominant. This is about having enough mastery of your own self to the point that you no longer need to prove everything you think or defend yourself against every criticism. Most men spend their lives trying to prove others wrong. A man who has discipline concentrates on dominating himself. Most people seek the pleasure of being right. The man with discipline seeks the benefit of staying calm. Everybody wants instant gratification of emotions. The individual who practices discipline builds up endurance. This level of mastery over oneself is rare, since it takes sacrifice. It demands you refrain from the temptation of seeking approval. It demands you refrain from the temptation of retaliating. It demands you refrain from trying to make people understand you after they have made up their minds not to understand you. Few can withstand misunderstanding. Few can bear silence. Few can go through life without attention. This is why they expose themselves all the time. This is why they lose control. As Machiavelli puts it, strength usually lies beyond physical sight. It lies in the individual who keeps himself cool when everyone else gets panicky. It lies in the individual who keeps his wits about him when everyone else gets emotional. It lies in the individual who stays cool when criticized. With time, this level of self-restraint will start changing the way you project yourself. People will begin to notice your strength. They will notice how little influence they have on you. They will notice how difficult it becomes for you to get swayed by criticism. They will notice how distraction is impossible when it comes to accomplishing your goals. And since they cannot easily know how you will react, they tend to be careful with you, not because you are threatening, not because you intimidate them by sheer physical prowess, because you have an attribute that is rare indeed, an intellect that controls itself rather than being controlled by its whims, a personality that is consistent irrespective of the situation, an aura created not by show or publicity, but by the subtle power that arises from one's mastery of self. How discipline changes your image. Machiavelli was aware of the fact that power doesn't push on. Machiavelli was aware of the fact, but also from the belief that you are capable of certain actions. This is where image comes in. People always focus solely on actions without realizing the impact their choices leave on their reputation, and how that reputation begins speaking for you without you having to speak at all. According to Machiavelli, image is one of the greatest sources of power a person can have. Why? Because image usually precedes actions. When your reputation tells people you're weak, they try you out. If your image portrays you as inconsistent, people won't take your word seriously. When you've built an image of giving up easily, no one believes in your goals anymore. But imagine if you became known as a disciplined individual. People start having expectations of excellence from you, not because you declare it, not because you ask for respect, but because of your actions that prove it. Most people try to establish their reputation through talk throughout their life. A disciplined man will let actions speak for themselves, and actions, practiced month after month, year after year, will be difficult to ignore. Think of how reputation is created. Rarely do people make a reputation by doing anything extraordinary. Rather, reputation is created by an accumulation of thousands of little things. They see who shows up prepared. They see who makes good on promises. They see who concentrates while everybody else is getting distracted. They see who continues to work even though they have lost interest. Initially, these things may not matter much, but eventually it adds up. At some point, it will stop being just one thing here and there. It will start becoming the way that you are. This is how discipline turns reputation into authority. And Machiavelli knew that authority does not necessarily come with a title. Many people have impressive titles, but receive little respect. Others lack any kind of title at all, but somehow are naturally trusted and followed. The distinction often comes down to reputation. As people regularly see discipline, you become associated with dependability. As people start to associate you with dependability, they start to trust your decisions. And as your decisions are trusted, your influence increases. It all happens very slowly. There are no press releases. There are no ceremonies. It is simply an accumulation of trust. And credibility is one of the most valuable types of social power. People undermine their own credibility without knowing it. They make promises they don't keep. They set goals they won't pursue. They speak confidently about their ideas today and then abandon them tomorrow. As a result, people stop believing them, even when they tell the truth. Machiavelli would consider it a mistake in strategy. A man whose words cannot be trusted undermines his influence even before starting. But there is another type of man. He starts being cautious with his promises. He thinks twice before making commitments. He realizes that every broken promise reduces his credibility, while keeping one increases it. And over time, this leads to something very powerful. People come to expect consistency from him, and expectations influence perception as well. If other people expect you to be a disciplined individual, they will treat you differently. They will value your time. They will take your aspirations more seriously. They will be reluctant to question your standards. They will understand that the things you do are not random expressions of enthusiasm, but products of a strong character. One of the reasons why discipline makes many individuals feel uncomfortable is because it reveals the difference between talking and doing. While most people like talking about success, not all of them like putting in all the work necessary for achieving it. And when such people find themselves dealing with an individual whose actions always correspond to his goals, they are faced with something they might have been trying to avoid for many years. Some of them might respect that kind of discipline. Others might be envious of it. The truth is that discipline generates facts. It eliminates excuses. It shows what happens when a man puts in the effort of making his dreams come true. Machiavelli knew how the predictability of a person's character could evoke fear and respect, but not through the predictability of weakness, predictability of standards. This is how discipline becomes power. It's not by brute strength. It's not by making someone feel threatened. It's not by continually talking yourself up. Instead, it comes from years of discipline and consistency in action that ultimately prove to people that you really are who you say you are. In an environment where promises are made, but not kept, where loyalty wavers and motivation is only temporary, there is something deeply profound about being that person. Machiavelli would leave you with one stark but very simple reality. The majority of people in their lifetime strive to master everything around them without being masters over themselves. They desire to influence things without practicing self-control. They seek out respect without sacrificing themselves. They look to be in power without mastering themselves. And due to the above reasons, they find themselves entangled within the same circles year after year, puzzled as to why their environment does not change at all. The man who decides to choose discipline sets himself apart from the rest. He stops relying on external motivation. He ceases waiting for ideal conditions. He refrains from letting emotions rule over him. Rather, he learns how to act in alignment with a purpose. Every day, every month, every year. Whereas others look for comfort, he looks for growth. Whereas others look for excuses, he looks for responsibility. Whereas others succumb to their temporary emotions, he commits to his long-term goals. And slowly but surely, something very special starts to happen. He gets smarter. He becomes tougher. His reputation becomes a certainty. People start taking notice, not because he brags about his discipline, not because he demands recognition, because consistency leaves a mark. He starts proving himself beyond mere words. He starts carrying himself differently. He begins setting new standards for himself. Some will admire him, some will respect him, others will maybe even envy him, because discipline always has a way of revealing the untapped potential that others keep ignoring within themselves. That is why discipline can be scary. It serves as a reminder to everyone that their excuses were nothing but just that. It serves as a reminder to everyone that being comfortable comes at a price. It serves as a reminder to everyone that greatness has nothing to do with knowledge and everything to do with consistency. That's why Machiavelli knew that the scariest person is not the one who knows how to control others. The scariest person is the one who has mastered the art of self-discipline. Because once you have control over your habits, emotions, attention, and desires, there is nothing anyone else can do about it. So ask yourself, what could happen if you stop negotiating with your weaknesses? What could happen if what you do is more powerful than your reasons not to? What could happen if you kept each promise that you make to yourself? For once your discipline becomes who you are, there will be many changes. Changes in your self-confidence, changes in your reputation, changes in your opportunities, changes in your future. But the most powerful change of all, people don't have to be convinced of your ability anymore, because you prove it with your discipline.